Hello, I'm Jo Fay, and this is a SwissInfo podcast. SwissInfo is the multilingual and international public media company of Switzerland. Welcome to our new season, in which we'll take you to Silicon Valley in California. We'll meet some big thinkers and talk to them about climate change and artificial intelligence. And we're curious to hear if there's still any spirit of the hippie movement around. Switzerland and Silicon Valley have a lot in common: cutting-edge research, some of the best universities in the world, and innovation concentrated in a small area. But the Alpine country still lacks the entrepreneurial culture and investment to compete with the Californian ecosystem. In the coming episodes, you'll hear what Switzerland can learn from Silicon Valley. So I've got science journalist Marc-André Miseret here with me in the studio. Hello, Marc-André. Thanks for joining me. And you visited Silicon Valley in California last autumn, didn't you?
I did, yes.
For SwissInfo, of course. Can you tell me about why you decided to go there?
Believe it or not, I'm almost 65, and it was my very first time in the US.
Wow.
Not even New York, nothing. Mm-hmm. And California sounds special to me because of the heritage of technology. That's where the place where it's happening. And also for a man my generation, was interesting to see what's left of the hippie heritage. Mm-hmm. You know, this counterculture movement back in the 60s, late 60s, mid-70s. And there's a lot of it left, even in the tech world.
Mm-hmm, really? And was that something that you were looking into in particular, this kind of hippie vibe that's in the tech companies?
There's a sort of, vibe. That's it, exactly. The way people behave, the way they treat each other, they talk to each other. You can make contact with almost anybody, even Mark Zuckerberg, but I didn't chance to meet him. Mm-hmm. I met one of the heads of Google, and he was a very, very simple person. I mean, easy contact.
That's the kind of Californian attitude, I think, isn't it?
Beach life, cool life.
Beach life, cool life, this sort of hippie vibe continuing on a little bit.
Yes.
It's not something you necessarily connect with Silicon Valley in the tech world.
I think, I don't want to advertise for Apple, but the think different tells all the thing. Somebody told me this kind of youth movement back in the 60s has a lot to do with what makes this place so special. Because there is a special spirit which has been transmitted through generations, I guess.
The special.
Have you ever seen the picture of the founders of Microsoft back in '78?
Yes, I
They
have.
look like hippies, you know. that was a joke on social networks. This picture and say, these guys are going to launch a startup. Would you invest? Would you trust them?
Yeah, well, I guess if you knew your stuff, then yes. And otherwise, you missed out big time. So one of the people you met over there was Herman Gyr, the psychologist and business consultant. Can you tell us a bit about him?
Well, Herman is 72. He landed in the US when he was 17 for the first time. Then he returned to Switzerland, but he said the country felt too narrow for him.
The US
so
or Switzerland?
No, Switzerland.
Switzerland, okay.
Went back home. He said, no, I can't live here. So he's been living in the US since 1970, I guess. And as a psychologist, he makes his studies first in Dallas, Texas, then in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and then moved to California, where he met his wife, who is also a psychologist and also became a business consultant. Together, we founded a company that gives advice to big structures, like even in Switzerland, I mean Swisscom, Swiss International Airlines, and La Poste have had trainings with him. And from psychology, he moved to business consulting. And what else? He's a very nice, easy to meet person.
wave and this whole development around kind of this youth movement, anti-war movement, fits in really well with what makes this place so special, right? I mean, if you look at social change or human change, it's not everybody ever, right? There's always some kind of shift somewhere in the system, often in very small parts, right? There's some kind of coherence, there's something happening here. Haight-Ashbury, the music scene, the theater scene, you know, all of a sudden there's this sort of coming together of some kind of cooktop, you know, like where ingredients are being tried and it permeates outward then, right? It comes into the rest of the community in some form. And then you have things like Esalen, or you have things like Asilomar, or you have these centers of people coming together and taking that kind of curiosity that was part of the hippie movement. And it now starts to impact how do we think about technology.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there is a direct link between the blossom of flower children and the blossom of technology.
Is it a direct link? I see a link, but is it true? I don't know, right? But I see it, and I see it with many things. AI now, or you name it.
But it seems that some human values like love and peace, let's say, don't really apply to the tech world where you can fall down as well. Somebody told me there's a lot of strong egos and greed also. Is it really technology serving humankind?
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? The technology is technology. AI is AI. The internet is the internet. And then people make certain decisions. So for the internet, what was so important, and you know, Vint Cerf, who is the father of the internet, was instrumental in this, and others who were part of this process, is they maintained that the fundamental protocol that guides the internet has to be free. It can't be owned by anybody. On top of it, you can then have things that are owned by people, Amazon, Google, you name it, Apple, you know, all of these kind of things. But the underlying protocol, the underlying infrastructure has to be free. It can't be owned. The point I'm trying to make is that humanity will always come up with the next level of progress. Mm-hmm. Then the greed kicks in and everything else kicks in too, right? And then there's a vibration, there's a dynamic there in this engagement between something where the greedy ones hold it and then the rest engages around it. There's this kind of adaptation of human consciousness around this new technology or this new thing, and the kind of settling the score, clarifying it. Okay, this is what we're now going to do. And I think that's happening with, you know, right now with the charging standard. Tesla is the big kahuna, puts in its standard, everybody else does other standards, and now all of a sudden they all want to be part of the Tesla standard just to charge their cars because Tesla is everywhere. And that's a good example of what I'm talking about, is that when something is fresh, somebody tries to own it, they do something, everybody else starts playing, and then it sort of shakes out and finds its balance.
Switzerland. We are very proud that Switzerland regularly ranks number one as an innovation country.
Yeah.
How do you feel it from California, where innovation seems to be everywhere?
I mean, what's great about Switzerland and its relationship to California is that there are people who are actively engaging in making sure that relationship is maintained. Swissnex is here, very active and doing an extremely good job to connect, you know, Switzerland with. In Bern, you have Berner Park, Zit Berner Park, and they are creating a new Swiss American kind of organization to allow startups to more effectively connect here and vice versa. I think the challenge for Switzerland is just that it's small. It's small. It's a small country, and it, particularly around technology, the success is whether you have a big group of people joining in using your technology. So the world is basically what you need to access or make available with your technology. The thing about Silicon Valley is that it's not just about the money, it's also about how that money is accessed. There's a discipline here, there's a language here, how you connect your idea with the money available. And what's happening here is that people have learned, with the help of the venture capitalists, how to present their ideas and how to think about their ideas to maximize value in the market. Because, of course, the venture capitalists want to ultimately have a return for the investment they make. The only way they're going to get a return is if the innovators are creating something very valuable, something that has a market, something that sparks interest, something that then grows. And so that engagement between the innovators and the funders has a certain pattern to it. So early on, the innovators may have a very bad pitch. And these guys go, that's a bad pitch, think about it. And there's a back and forth, right? And then it's a test for the innovators to say, oh, let me fix it, let me learn, let me pivot is a part of the language here, right? So they pivot a little, then they come back and say, okay, look at this is the idea now. And they go, interesting, have you looked at this? So there's this interesting interchange between really smart money that keeps looking at these innovations and keeps interacting with it until it blossoms into something that really is worth investing in, right?
We already talked a lot about AI, and you seem to think it's the next big thing.
It's the next big thing in terms of technology, absolutely. Or it's the big thing. It's not next anymore. It's here now. And I use it every day. The genie is out of the bottle. You can't stuff it back. It's here to stay. It'll never go away, right? It's part of our human reality from here on out. And so from my perspective, we're back into what I described earlier about this now engagement between, is it going to be evil, is it going to be good, some of it is going to be evil, some of it is going to be incredible. Human nature, right? It's just what we do. We progress and then we engage. You cannot stop us from doing that. That's just who we are.
So I feel this place as very climate conscious. It's very advanced here in terms of ecological consciousness. So does it need more here?
Well, much more. The problem we have is that we are in a kind of dream state when it comes to our environmental reality. And the fundamental problem with our dream state is that we believe that it's all about emissions. It's about the cars we drive and the emissions they put out. It's about the factories putting out emissions. It's about this idea that we're digging out this carbon and that has been there for millions of years, and then we burn it and put it up into the atmosphere. It's absolutely true that that's a problem, right? We have to stop emitting. But stopping emissions is not going to change our climate situation. Our climate situation is that the oceans are getting warmer. Not only are they getting warmer on top, they're getting warmer way deep down where it used to be cold even though it was warming up here, it stayed solidly cold down there. It's now, the heat is going deeper and deeper, which then in Antarctica comes back out and it starts melting the ice from below, right? Wild stuff is going on. Permafrost, I don't have to go into everything else, but everywhere we look, the trajectory is either, hotter or softer or more melt or whatever. It's nearly exponential in all cases. This is baked in already. Greenland is going to go, the ice is going to go away, it's baked in. Why is it baked in? Because we have done this for 150, 250 years. We've industrialized our lives, and have put this stuff up. And the problem with CO2 is it stays up there for millennia, or well, hundreds of years. Yeah. And so we have this cover way up there of 1,000 gigatons of extra carbon that's just sitting there like this cover, this blanket. We need to move into completely different approaches to repairing what we have done, right? We have to think differently about this planet. We still think that this planet is a beautiful blue marble, and look at this, like we saw it from the moon. It was this fantastic place, and aren't we lucky? Well, it's no longer like that. The planet we're on is now orange. It is no longer blue. It is a totally different thing. And what we have not yet done, what I think humans do when they land on a place and discover, hey, wait, this is cool, this is nearly like Earth, we would go to work. We would say, how do we fix it so that it becomes Earth? So to me, it's interesting to think about how do we get humans to start to realize that the planet we're on now is not the planet we're thinking we're on. And then to think about, well, now that we realize that this is no longer the Earth that we think it is, how do we actually repair it? And just stopping to drive your car isn't good enough. You asked the question of degrowth. Well, we have to think about that, right? How do we take the CO2 out of the atmosphere at very, very significant levels? We need to think about how can I help actively cool my planet? What is it that I could do to do that?
Do you think what you just described, what we have to do if we want to survive as a species, do you think technology will help?
I think my hunch is that it's going to be technologies in connection with nature, right? The best way to draw down CO2 is to put plants to work. Plants are CO2 capture machines, right? If you can get plants to grow and suck up this stuff, and then you get technology involved that takes that plant material and turns it into pure carbon, then you have something.
Okay, I stop the camera.
Thank you, Marc-André. If you enjoyed listening to our guests today, make sure to subscribe to the Swiss Connection so you don't miss next week's episode, where Marc-André meets Emilia Gyr, a native of Gruyere and director of Swissnex, the Swiss scientific consulate in San Francisco. She'll tell us all about Swiss startups in California and how they're faring. Today's episode was recorded and edited by our science and video journalist Michele Andina. For more content, visit our website, swissinfo.ch. I'm Jo Fay. Thanks for listening.
Hello, I'm Imogen Folks from Swiss Info's Inside Geneva podcast. On February 24th, 2022, Russia attacked Ukraine. The invasion caused Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II, and during the year-long conflict, tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of people, soldiers and civilians, have been killed. Over the past year, a number of episodes of Inside Geneva have looked at the heavy humanitarian toll of the war and its wider implications for the world. We've been joined by historians and international human rights experts to ask about the background to the invasion. We've talked to major UN aid agencies about how the war in Ukraine is impacting other humanitarian crises. And we've asked if sanctions or war crimes investigations can stop or at least limit this conflict. If you're particularly concerned by the war in Ukraine, do listen to these episodes. You can find Inside Geneva free to listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and all your usual podcast apps.